Let's talk about some standings. Some standings. Appreciate everybody in chat. Please hit that like button. Please, 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 wherever you are, we definitely need that. Appreciate it. Really, really, really definitely appreciate that. All right, let's go over to the SIAC standings. And right now, Miles is sitting up there at top of the SIAC standings, 6-0. We've got Fort Valley State, Clark Atlanta, Albany State, and Tuskegee, who are all sitting right underneath them. And again, we are now in the last week of the season. Some would call it rivalry week. That's what it's been termed in D2 rivalry week. And so we did get some clarity this weekend, Chris, about the championship situation. So we're going to read it. You guys can go over to HBCUGameday.com to read it all, but I'll give you the Cliff Notes version because we definitely want you to go over to the website to see that. So right now, Miles College is in. Miles is in. They are in. For them, they are trying to, and I'm understanding that they're actually going to host the SIAC championship game. So it's not going to be in Atlanta this year. It will be at Miles College. So right now, it's just a matter of who is going to be there going against them. So let's see. So Miles is in. Fort Valley State, you control your own destiny. You are the master of your fate. You are the captain of, I don't remember, Invictus. I'm not an alpha, so that's my excuse. Let's see. We have and then so if they beat Albany State, they are in. That's the simplest path at the end of Saturday. Clark Atlanta.
Least you can do is level with me. What are my chances?
They will need to beat Morehouse. Seems reasonable. And they would need Fort Valley State to lose. And then they would go into the SIAC championship game. Because if you remember game one, Clark Atlanta was able to beat Fort Valley State. And that is why they're close there. Then you got Albany State. So Albany State would need to beat Fort Valley State. They would need Miles to win and Tuskegee to lose, and they would need Clark Atlanta to lose to Morehouse.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
You know what? Don't pack your bags, guys. Yeah, and Tuskegee. Because why not? Tuskegee will need to beat Miles. They will need a Fort Valley State loss. They will need a Clark Atlanta loss. And just for a little icing on the cake, Chris, they'll also need a loss from our friends that play in Blythewood, located in Columbia, none other than Allen. Again, this is Allen's record. Allen is 2-7. Yet they factor into a potential playoff scenario, championship game scenario. Because you can't make this up. You gotta love it. Over in the CIAA.
Here we go, yo. So what's the scenario?
We'll pull those standings up, and okay, similar things, but not quite. Similar on paper and somewhat in results, but not quite. So you got Virginia Union up there, sitting up there, technically at 6-0. And then you've got Johnson C. Smith, technically 5-1. And you got Virginia State, technically 5-1. And Winston-Salem State, technically, is 4-2. So our friends at the CIAA also gave us theirs as well. Are you okay? Do you guys got that? Do you get all the technicalities? All right. So the CIAA, their championship game scenario is as follows: Virginia Union is in. It doesn't matter if they come out and lay a stinker. It doesn't matter if Virginia State scores 91 points on them. That why not? Because why not? Yeah, they are in. So here are the possible scenarios. If VUU wins and Johnson C. Smith beats Livingstone, not a given, then they are in the championship. If Virginia Union wins, Smith loses, and WSSU wins, Virginia Union is still in championship game. However, JCSU, VSU, and WSSU will be tied at 5-2. However, JCSU would be determined as the head-to-head against both VSU and WSSU. And technically they have it over Virginia Union too, but we digress. Either way, that would be there. And then just because we love the scenarios here, let's go to 4. If Union loses and Johnson C. Smith wins, if Union loses, then that means VSU, VUU, and JCSU will be the co-champions of the regular season, and this creates a 3-way tie for the determine championship consideration. To determine who moves on to the championship, the tiebreaker is winning percentage with the 7-game conference schedule. With each team at 6-1, technically, all would be tied.
Just make it stop.
The next tiebreaker is head-to-head competition. And because they didn't all compete within the 7-game conference schedule, that can't be considered. The next tiebreaker.
All right. You got my attention now. Make it stop.
The next tiebreaker, Chris, is point differential against common opponents. VSU, VUU, and JCSU only have one common opponent. Guess who that is, Chris? Guess who that is, Chris? Guess who it is?
Winston-Salem State.
No. Because technically, VSU and WSSU didn't play as far as CIAA is concerned. But that one common opponent, Chris, and it's all coming together, that diabolical Dr. Alvin Parker. That diabolical Alvin Parker. And yes, AD Drew, this is the CIAA is showing you potentially how chaos is truly done. Bluefield State. They all played Bluefield State, and it counted for all of them. Didn't count for some other folks who played Bluefield State. Not that the point differential would have helped. Anyway, at plus 91, VUU would move on to the championship. VSU and JCSU remain tied at plus 39. You can't. Man, shout out to the CIAA. You can't make this up. I'm rooting for this, by the way. Let's see. Only VSU and JCSU in contention with only VSU and JCSU in contention for the final championship spot. The tiebreaker procedure resets between the two teams. The first tiebreaker, conference winning percentage, would remain tied. I'm really rooting for this. However, the second tiebreaker, head-to-head, favors JCSU. JCSU would move on to the championship as the number 2 seed. I
feel very refreshed after my nap.
I mean, Chris, I know you're studying to get that PhD, man. I don't know if any of that work that you're doing is any tougher than what the CIAA has done. CIAA, you have outdone yourself. You have outdone yourself. Take a bow at the conference office. Yes, that would be chaos. And yes, AD Drew, we know you're rooting for chaos too. Why not double chaos? Why not? Let's just make it real fun. Oh man, it's gonna be homecoming Saturday night. I'm going to a concert. I don't have time for this really. So make it. I'm glad they at least got these out. All right, Chris. And then if that is not enough, Chris, then we are talking playoffs.
Playoffs. Let's do it.
So, as we've reiterated before, the D2 playoffs is its own animal. Currently, the way that it works right now, there is broken into regions. Technically, we're gonna call it a technical show. This is technically broken into regions, and the CIAA is technically in Super Region 2. Yeah, my head hurts. I'm sorry. Technically, so Super Region 2, the CIAA and the SIAC are both in there, both HBCU leagues. So right now, the first week regional rankings came out. There were three CIAA teams: Johnson C. Smith, Virginia Union, Winston-Salem State, and Miles. And then that was alphabetical, though. So then we had last week play out. Then Johnson C. Smith loses. And then Johnson C. Smith, which some thought that potentially they would be a number 1 seed, they lose to Fayetteville State, who was 3 and 4 at the time. So they dropped down to number 4 in the first numerical. Then we've got Virginia Union. Chris, where were they slotted at? I'm blanking on VUU.
VU was 6.
VUU was 6. And we'll even get to them because, make it even more fun. Please, guys, tap that like button. This is some good stuff you're getting here. And so number seven, which technically is the last playoff spot, you've got good old State U, Winston-Salem State University. They are 6-2 technically in D2 play because they only do Division 2. So they are in the number 7 spot, not Virginia State, who could possibly go to the CIAA championship game. We'll talk about Virginia State in a minute, while they're probably not regionally ranked. Anywho, they're ranked number 7. So if the playoffs started today, they would be in. But however, newsflash, they don't start today. And there is another HBCU in the mix, and that would be Miles College, who is currently 7-0 in Division 2 play. And I'm sorry, 7-1. 7-1. They lost to West Alabama.
Yeah.
They lost. So 7-1. So they are sitting down at number 9. All right, Chris, explain to us how this works. Because again, we got this week right here, and then there's another week for the CIAA and SIAC. It's a championship game. But Chris, give us the D2 expertise behind it, guys. You're getting some good stuff here, man. If y'all haven't smashed that like button right now, you're a hater.
Well, I would just say that, like, when you look at the top 10, for example, there's a number of things that got to be considered. So you got to consider strength of schedule. You got to the committee can also consider wins over 500, and then there's this performance indicator that the NCAA now uses as well. With the highest score you can get is a 30. And so what's kind of unique about this year from the CIAA's perspective is how well they did out of conference, because, they swept the SIAC, and that really helps for these type of situations. And they actually did remarkably well out of conference. I mean, you got, Fayetteville had a win against USC Pembroke. Winston-Salem State beat Ohio Dominican. These are some of the games that you got to win to even be in this position. And so, JCSU, yes, they got shut out. That's just one loss, right? And so it's not going to automatically knock them out of the playoffs, especially they got a strength of schedule that's well over 500. It's like 546 right now. That's a good number. That's a pretty good number. The way it reads right now, Wingate was 1, West Alabama is 2, and Valdosta's 3. Although I would, Stephen's favorite PWI is their strength of schedule is a little soft right now. They've got 2 very tough opponents. So, Stephen, if it makes you feel any better,
the fake VSU.
So Valdosta, there's only one VSU.
The fake VSU.
There's only one VSU. There's always that rule. But Valdosta's got a real challenge because they've got to play West Florida, and they got to play Delta State. And Delta State's coming up first this weekend. they're just sitting outside of the top 10. They dropped those two, and they could actually find themselves sitting out of the playoffs. So that's a really interesting dilemma. You know, where does VUU sit in all of this? You know, the strength of schedule isn't, it's not the strongest. It's like 495, so it's not like, wow, like this is really strong. Because Wingate,
I'm sorry.
because Wingate, right? Everybody's second favorite PWI, the newest villain on the block. Their strength of schedule is like off the charts. It's 591. It's really strong. And so that's why they got into that one seed, or why Valdosta, who's undefeated, is not there. And that brings you to a 6-2 Winston-Salem State, because Winston actually has a remarkably strong strength of schedule, 0.559. So you got this benefit of like, you played those top schools, you played VU, you played JCSU, you played VSU. You go 2-2 against teams that are greater than 500. You know, that says a lot when you're looking at playoffs. And so they are going to take a hit against Fayetteville State. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, especially with Lenore Ryan. It seems to be kind of on their heels a little bit, but that just shows you the beauty of you play these games that you're supposed to win and you win them. And we've been saying that for years. I think the fear, though, that I have, and it shouldn't be a fear, but like, let's say you get to the
be afraid of everything
game,
these days.
Well, the fear I have for Winston State is, you know, you don't make it, but not only do you not make it, but you give Fayetteville State the satisfaction of winning this particular weekend, and you don't make
Chris,
it.
I can't take that much more, man. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So there's that piece of it, but you're kind of just sitting on 7 on the periphery, and you got Miles there who it will take your spot because of earned access. And, you know, if you're 8 or 9, and you're the highest ranked team in a conference that has nobody above you, then you can get into the playoffs via earned access, and Miles will do that for Winston State. But for Virginia Union, you know, they're far enough north that you can actually swap regions. And we saw that last year. They went to Kutztown. There's a chance that they're far enough north that they swap regions again. Any school 5, 6, or 7 is technically unseeded, and unseeded teams can change regions. So there's a good chance that there's some projections out there that show them switching regions into Super Region 1. And so, you know, that's a really interesting prospect as well going on the road. So I'll just throw this one other thing out there. If JCSU and VUU make it to the championship game, I would happen to think that, like, you're going to have 2 CIAA teams in the playoffs. And because of the virtue that they've already played. So if VUU loses to JCSU twice, they're not going to count that as losses to 2 separate opponents. That'll be just another loss to the same opponent, and hey, you just can't beat that opponent. So they're not going to double count that. And if VUU wins in that scenario, then it just nullifies what happened to JCSU, and maybe VUU is the one hosting a game and JCSU goes on the road. So there's a lot to think about when it comes to playoffs. I mean, I can't underscore it enough that you know, the next 2 weekends are really, really, really big deal, and take the opportunity to take this in. Is Winston-Salem State eliminated for the championship game? Yes. From the Division II playoffs? No, not quite, but they must win against Fayetteville State to even be considered. And at least, you know, they're in the mix right now, although I'm really curious to see if they beat Fayetteville State, their strength of schedule will come down, and will that be enough to can they still hold on to 7 or maybe even move up, or are they just kind of going to be stuck there and they won't make it
In no
because
Rams land.
they're basically I call it the Fort Valley State rule, because Fort Valley State got caught up in a 7 line and they ended up not making it to the playoffs. And you're just like, dang, they just got leapfrog. So it's a really interesting dynamic. It's a really interesting dynamic.
Look at WSSU's favorite fan from Norfolk State. Look at him. He just can't stop talking about WSSU. Look at him. Knowing Norfolk State has been eliminated from conference play since they started. Get out of here. Get out of here. I wish you and Coach Odom's many years of happiness. All right, here we go. We got Coach Robert Massey talking about the scenario.
It's about it. The intent was to win the conference championship and then go on to try to win a national championship. But if you're having a good season, you have the ability to go to the playoffs, what's wrong with being a national champ?
Well, yes. Winston-Salem State University, where being a national champion is an okay second option. We gotta love it. All right, I'll tell you what we don't have as an option this year, and I broke this story earlier this week. We talked about it previously, and I just made sure I got the confirmation. The Florida Beach Bowl has been canceled. There's ice in the sand, icicles on the. We got icicles here on the palm trees because the game is officially on ice. The Florida Beach Bowl is a bowl game that was created last year. Last year between the CIAA and SIAC not champions, between the two leagues, for a team that won at least 6 games as an playoff alternate. Last year, Fort Valley State beat Johnson C. Smith. We talked to Coach Flowers, and he talked about how important that was for his program. And, they have benefited from it. But there will be no benefit this year. Let's see. We just might get our wish. We'll see.